And joining us today is the Michigan 4th District Congressional candidate from the U.S. Taxpayers Party, Mr. Curtis Clark. Mr. Clark, thanks for being with us today. Why are you running for this seat?
I am running because I am very concerned with the direction that our country is going. It seems like traditionally in the past, no matter who you vote for, whether it's Democrat or Republican, it seems like nothing changes. It's just a continuation of the same old thing. And inflation keeps rising, and we have to do something about it. Maybe some new, fresh perspectives in office would help.
What experience do you have that you could bring to Congress that might be beneficial for this district?
I'm a 25-year Army veteran. I joined in 1983. I was a senior in high school. I spent 25 years. I worked with the State Department when I was in Iraq. And that's when I started noticing a lot of things that just wasn't right. And I've been watching it ever since. And it seems like the career politicians keep getting richer and richer. They're enriching themselves. And it's not working for us because taxes are going up. There's an attack on our right to own our homes and private property. Like taxes are going up on homes 5% every year. So by 2030, do the math. That's enormous. We're not energy. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say that the U.S. Taxpayers Party is the platform of the party essentially in its title. It's all about the taxes.
I would say it's about conservatism and the Constitution. We have to get back to the founding principles of our founding fathers and what made this country so great, which is freedom. And we are incrementally losing our freedom every year that goes by. Every time there's an emergency or something happens, there's some type of legislation that slowly encroaches on our liberties and freedoms.
Give me an example of a freedom that you have lost over the last 10 years.
Oh boy. I wouldn't say right now it's a freedom that we have lost. It's an encroachment on our liberties and freedoms. Freedom of press, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, gun rights. There's just all these little things that just bite incrementally, slowly, little by little, to where it's becoming, we don't want to end up like China. They've got a surveillance state over there. It's in 25-minute cities and all that stuff. We don't want that here. We want freedom.
When it comes to caucusing, as a member of Congress, you would have to caucus with one side or the other, and that is in line with committee assignments and things like that. You'd have to be assigned essentially. Who would you caucus with? The Republicans?
I would say Republicans.
Yeah.
They're more conservative. That's the reason why the Constitution Party is the U.S. Taxpayer Party in Michigan is supposed to be called the Constitution Party. It just hasn't been converted officially up in Lansing. And the Constitution Party, the main reason they formed is because a lot of the Republicans were shifting away from true conservatism, constitutionalism. And so that's the premise of why they formed in the first place, to get back and adhere to those conservative values.
Would you say that is your primary platform?
That and a cross between that and the Republican platform.
Okay. Let's talk about some of the issues that will be deciding this case. Of course, you look at a lot of the polls and you will see generally a fairly familiar ranking, whether it's one poll or another, about some of the top issues: the economy, inflation, things like that. The issue of immigration, the issue of foreign policy is big this year with the ongoing wars in Ukraine, as well as what's happening in the Middle East right now. Which one of those areas is most important to you?
Oh, immigration is huge. There's a lot of information that's out there that, and a lot of people have reported, a lot of these immigrants that are coming across the border it looks like it's a black colored MasterCard, and there's reports that they're getting it from the United Nations. They're being funded by the UN. So what happens when that bank account stops and that money stops flowing? That's a concern everybody needs to be worried about at this point.
What evidence do you have to support that?
What's that?
What evidence do you have to support that?
Oh, yeah. Tell you what, go to I have a website. It's patriotapproved.org. I've been posting a lot of things on patriotapproved.org. I will be posting some more information now that you mention it regarding that exact topic on that website. So it should be up within the next week. I'll devote a whole section to that.
How widespread is this? You said a lot of people. Is it 4%? Is it 10%? Is it all of the people coming over the border? And it's when you say coming over the border, are these only the legal migrants or are they stopping illegals and handing these things out?
They're getting them before they even come across the border.
Who's giving them out?
The UN, United Nations.
So
The United Nations is not what you think it is. They're vying for world domination, world control, even over the United States, the people of the United States of America. There's a lot of evidence with that. They're working with the World Economic Forum, George Soros, and they're implementing the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. It's right there on the UN website and the World Economic Forum. All you have to do is research it, and it's right there in the open. But a lot of people, they don't research. They don't even research the candidates.
So let's talk about the broader issue of immigration, and that is the people coming into the country illegally. That's been an issue over the last 4 years or so. What specifically would you do in something that you could pass in the Congress that would handle the issue of illegal immigration?
Well, you know what? I like the policy of remain in Mexico for one. A lot of these people need to be vetted. We don't know who they are. I hear a lot of reports of military-age fighting men coming across the border. What is the real reason? There's, was it 20, 30 million people coming across the border over the last 40 years? This can't be. You're looking at human trafficking. There's a lot of reports of that going on out there. I mean, the mainstream media is not going to report everything that's going on. I believe they have a narrative. They're owned and controlled. So go to alternate media sources. I go a lot of places on Telegram channels. A lot of your Rumble channels have uncensored media. It's out there. You just have to look for it.
Are you concerned that your sources of information are pushing an agenda? They have just one side?
I'm afraid that the mainstream media is pushing an agenda that's one side, to tell you the truth.
You have evidence of that, or is it just you don't like the report that comes out, so therefore I'm not going to buy that?
You'd have to look at probably 50% of America that just don't buy it. I mean, honestly.
Okay. So let me ask you a question about an issue that, again, would have to be addressed in Congress and would have to pass, and that is how to handle the people who are in the country currently illegally. What should happen to the people who are currently in the country illegally?
Well, for one, we have to know who they are and where they're at. Otherwise, what can you do? You know, I don't believe in targeting people because of their skin tone or ethnicity. You know, there's been concerns about that. We just have to know who they are and where are they at, because there's a lot of sex trafficking going on of children that's been reported out there. There's a lot of things that need to be investigated.
What about specifically the plan from former President Trump, if he were elected, to have essentially a mass deportation of the illegal immigrants currently in the country? Is that something you support?
If these are known terrorists and known criminals, a lot of them, that's what we need to find out. You know, if they're not a threat, if they're really here trying to escape poverty, and they really genuinely want a better way of life, hey, I'm all for that. But if there's criminal elements coming across, that's gang members, people that are just here for nefarious purposes, that needs to be rooted out. That needs to be addressed and handled accordingly.
A secondary question, and it sounds like you're already moving in that direction of allowing some sort of a pathway for people who have been in the country for quite some time. And I'm talking about the upwards number of about 11 million people, it's estimated, have been in the country for more than 10 years. And the only crime per se that they've committed is the fact that they entered the country illegally. Otherwise, they've set up a family, they've established employment, they're paying their Social Security taxes, over which at this point they will never get that money back. They don't get the benefits from that. They get, of course, other benefits as well, but they haven't
Do
been.
you have evidence that they're paying Social Security?
What's that?
You have evidence that they're paying Social Security?
When anybody who gets paid with the paycheck, if the company is doing what it's supposed to be doing, pays Social Security tax.
Because when I
Because the companies would be held criminally liable if they're not paying their
yeah,
Social Security tax.
and
So
there's a lot of rulings. Well, I remember back in the 80s when I was off active duty, I worked, and one of the requirements is that you had to be a U.S. citizen. So how are these people getting hired if they're not U.S. citizens?
Well, that's a secondary issue that the government's actually in the process of trying to crack down. They have been for years, going after employers who routinely, knowingly hire people without documentation. The question, however, is about the people who live in the United States and have lived here for a decade or maybe even a generation, and they haven't been committing crimes, and they haven't been doing anything other than just living their life and contributing in some form or fashion to the economy. How do you handle those people? Do you allow them to work their way towards citizenship? Do you put in place some sort of a penalty that could perhaps they might have to pay a fine or something like that, so it's fair for the people who did it the right way?
I definitely want things fair. Let me put it this way. I'm a first generation immigrant on my mother's side. After World War II in 1953, my mother, my grandparents, my aunts and uncles, they immigrated here from England. And they wanted a pathway to citizenship. And they did it legally. They did it the right way. And they had no issues. There's no problems. When you do things the right way, everything's fine. Just do it the right way. So, I would say, find a pathway to those that are here and they want to do things lawfully and they want to contribute to society and not be coming here to be a drain on society. There's a lot of good, hardworking people that, want to come here and participate in the American dream, because a lot of countries don't allow you to have the American dream like we do here in the United States of America.
Sure. Let me ask you about the economy. The mainstream candidates, the Republicans and the Democrats, and most of the third-party candidates as well, talk about the need to bring down the prices of all those everyday items, milk and bread and eggs, and the price of gas, rent, etc. What do you think is the best way to address that and bring the prices down as quickly as possible? And essentially, what can Congress do specifically for that in a free market system?
I'm glad you asked that. The first thing we need to do is prohibit foreign countries from buying up our farmland and owning and controlling all of our manufacturing. We have all these global international corporations coming in to the United States. And at one time, what made this country so great was there was a machine shop virtually on every street corner in every town and city in America. We were entrepreneurs. We had freedom, and we didn't have regulations and this and that stifling us. And now it seems like everything's owned and controlled by foreign corporations, which means our money is we're outsourcing. The money's not remaining in the communities. So when you got BlackRock, State Street, Vanguard, JP Morgan Chase, the main shareholders of these big corporations, the money's, like Ross Perot said in 1991, you see our money being sucked right out of the country. We need to find a way to change policy so that we're, for one, energy independent. I have a plan for that. And right now, look at the Palisades in Southwest Michigan. They said that this company called Holtec International was going to decommission it. Well, it was already found proof, and I can put that on the website too, that this was all pre-planned 2 years before they even were decommissioned, that Holtec International was scheduled to purchase this thing. They're a big international corporation. If you look up Holtec International Ukraine, they've got a satellite station over there, a big base over there actually, and they contain the nuclear waste from Chernobyl in Russia. So now we have an international corporation here in Michigan that wants to install these SMRs, small modular reactors, and all of our money that we pay for electricity is going to go to these corporations that are taking the money out of our communities. And look, that's not the path to go. And I hate to say this, but my opponent assisted with the transfer of this. I have a lot better path, and that's with what you call a home rule charter in each county. If we were to adopt and pass a home rule charter, we could have a county municipal cooperative own and control our energy. Like what I want to push is micro modular reactors. We can manufacture them right here in Michigan, sell them to our counties through a cooperative, and the average household pays $2,500 a year in electricity. You do the math, that's billions of dollars that could stay in each county municipality. And there would be you could end the need for people to have to pay property tax on their homes.
So you're talking about roughly $2,500 a year per household, so that works out to about $200 a month or so. What do you tell the people whose electric bill is far less than that right now, that they might see a big rate hike when it comes to their utility bills?
It's already in the plan. The MPSC has already said that it's going to go up, because what they're doing in Ottawa County is they're closing the Campbell. That's in Port Sheldon. It's scheduled for demolition May of 2025. This thing just had billions of dollars put into it, so it was good until 2040. Now they're going to, because of the Green New Deal, they're going to demolish it, which supplies electricity to 1 million West Michigan customers. I mean, that'd be okay if this was Nevada, New Mexico, California. This is Michigan. Remember what happened in Texas a few years ago? Because they were depending too much on solar and wind. It's not the right type of energy source to depend on for Michigan. It's not a one size fits all across the whole country. So one of the things we need to do is get a lot of these left-wing radicals pushing this Green New agenda out of the MPSC. These are appointed people. They're not elected. They're appointed by the governor. And it needs to change because they're supposed to be nonpartisan, and they're not.
Do you think climate change is a real thing? Is it a threat?
I think it's blown way out of proportion for an agenda. I just think they're making a bigger deal out of it than what it actually is. There's a lot of scientific proof that shows this. Like I said, you have to look for it.
Let me ask you about the issue of abortion. For some people, it's a very high issue on the platform that they like to have an answer, and others it's not quite as high. But nonetheless, there's not a lot of wiggle room with a lot of people. Do you think the Republican approach right now of being generally pro-life is the better way to go, or the Democratic approach of being generally pro-choice is the better way to go?
I'm a pro-life person, but I don't believe in the no exception rule. You know, there's in the life of the mother, rape, incest, you know, that's understandable. That hits the human heart and the human mind when bad things like that happen. I understand, people understand. But I've heard too many cases of young girls, 19 years old, 20 years old, having 4 or 5 abortions. What? We have a problem with morality in this country. We have to gain that sense of morality back again. And I think this will solve a lot of our issues.
One of the questions that has come up in this debate has been surrounding federal dollars. Federal dollars for a long time have been banned to go for elective abortions. Right now, Medicaid, for example, only covers abortions in those cases like rape or incest or to save the life of the mother. Do you think that policy needs to stay the same, or should it be expanded?
I don't believe in spending tax dollars on Planned Parenthood. I'm sorry, I just can't support that. If that's what you're referring to.
And that was, yes, that was the question. Let me ask you a couple of foreign policy questions. The United States has had for years generally a blanket support for the state of Israel, and that has had a little bit of pushback based upon some of the response in the military response for Israel in Gaza after Hamas started this war on October 7th. Do you feel like the current level of support in Congress and in the White House for the state of Israel is appropriate, or do you think it needs to be addressed?
I think Congress needs to be fixed first. I think we have a lot of problems. Here in Michigan, we've got a radical Islamic individual. I'm sure you know who I'm speaking about. We're supposed to be a Christian nation. The founding fathers established that. You start with the Massachusetts and Virginia, and read all the documentation that lead to the ideology that the founding fathers had, because we had generations of freedom here in this country, and that's the path that they chose. It's the one that gives us the freedoms and liberties, so that we the people are in charge, not a sovereign king in another country 3 miles away telling us what we can and can't do.
As a constitutionalist, though, you do have to recognize the fact that it's in the very First Amendment of freedom of religion. People are free to choose the religion they want to choose, and no religion was established as the official religion of the federal government.
Right, right. The problem they had back in Europe all those years ago, hundreds of years ago, was that there's so many denominations of Christianity that the King of England said, you have to follow this faction of Christianity, whatever that may be, Catholic or whatever, and all the others, uh, we will behead you. We will hang you in a public square.
Yeah.
That comes from persecution. That's where all of that came from.
Yeah, let me veer back to the original question, though, about support for Israel. Are you happy with the support the United States is giving Israel, or should it be more? Should it be less?
I support Israel because they have a right to defend themselves. If Hamas and all these other countries weren't attacking them, we wouldn't be where we are now. We wouldn't.
Okay.
And go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, how about Ukraine? The question of Ukraine is one that also has some level of debate to it. Originally, when the Russian army rolled into Ukraine, it was pretty blanket support from the United States Congress and the official government, sending billions of dollars in military aid to allow Ukraine to defend itself, so the West doesn't necessarily have to do that. That has come under some level of question. There is some concern among some Republicans, especially on the farther right wing of the party, that maybe perhaps we're sending too much money over there. What is your feeling about support for Ukraine and the kind of support we're giving and the West is giving?
I think the support, all the money that we're giving them, is it's gotten out of hand. We've got a lot more issues that we need to use that money for right here in the United States of America. When eggs go from 79 cents a dozen to $4 a dozen, we have a problem. A lot of people cannot afford the price of groceries. It's ridiculous. There's no need for that. And all this money going to Ukraine. I understand why Russia is upset, because there's these border countries that are not supposed to be part of what's it, the UN, the border
NATO?
nation.
NATO?
NATO. Yes, thank you. There was a deal that was made back in the early 90s that none of the border nations along Russia's coast, the border, would be NATO nations. Well, that's being violated. Of course they're going to get upset. Just like in the 50s, we didn't want Russian nukes in Cuba. Well, Russia doesn't want nukes planted right along the border aimed at Russia. I mean, I'm sure if you live in Russia, you wouldn't want that either.
Do you feel like Russia was justified in its invasion of Ukraine?
I think we have to do an investigation, a thorough investigation into exactly why that happened, why they invaded Russia or Ukraine, excuse me. I think we need to do a more in-depth study on that.
So you're at least open to the possibility that Russia could be justified in invading Ukraine. I mean, based upon your argument.
I'm open to debate on that. Yes.
Okay. Well, based upon your argument, in theory, because NATO is now has Poland as a member, or Lithuania and some of the other Finland, that those nations theoretically could face a Russian invasion that might be justified.
Well, let's just hope that doesn't count or doesn't happen. Right now, I'm focused on fixing America because if we can't take care of ourselves, how do you expect we're going to take care and help other countries all around the world? That, when you talk about sustainability, that's just not sustainable. We have to take care of ourselves.
Let me ask you a final question as we wrap up here.
Sure.
And that is specifically why you think you are the best candidate for this position in the 4th District.
Pardon, can you say that again?
I was asking why you think you are the best candidate for the 4th District.
I'm not a person that's going to view the shareholders of our great country as these large corporations. Because right now, let me show you something. And this is a common problem with a lot of people that get into Congress. I want to show you something right here on my computer.
Sure.
Can you see that?
I do see that.
It says his net worth is $14 million. That's from 2 years ago. If they're coming in there and you're making $179,000 a year, it's $200,000 now because they recently gave themselves a $20,000 a year raise. How are all these career politicians becoming worth millions? Millions. There's a problem. We, the people, should be the shareholders in this country. And less people are being able to own their own homes, own their own property. It's going to be like California. I used to live in California. The homelessness is terrible out there. I mean, if you can't afford to spend $1,500 to $1,800 to rent an apartment, and you end up having to live in your car, there's a problem that needs to be addressed. And that's my main concern is the average person is hurting, and we need to focus on that aspect and radically bring in new policies that focuses on entrepreneurship, keeping our tax dollars and our money right here in our communities. Because every time we pay an electric bill, or we buy food, this and that, so it goes to a big corporation, and they it doesn't benefit we the people. We're just being used for our money. That's how it feels. And I'm sure plenty of Americans out there feel the same way.
Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe to the WSBT 22 YouTube channel.